Hello, I'd like to tell you how to cure a large number of diseases, a large number of ailments, a large number of chronic illnesses very easily. And you won't hear this from your medical professional, because if they told you this, they would be sued by the corrupt pharmaceutical industry, which I believe but cannot prove is owned and controlled by dark occultists who wish us to be chronically ill, who wish to see us suffering because they're bad-minded and evil. Okay. I used to suffer from irritable bowel syndrome, fairly bad in the past. And I used to go to doctors all the time. I used to go to medical doctors and I used to tell them about it. And they wasted my time because they would take my money and they would give me prescriptions for questionable substances. And they wasted my time, they wasted my resources, they wasted my money. They didn't help me at all, ever. And they even told me to take a high-fiber diet, which is the polar opposite to good advice. It's bad advice because high fiber makes irritable bowel syndrome a million times worse. I have a book here now called Fiber Minutes by Konstantin Monastersky. Fiber Minutes. And you ought to read it, but you don't even have to read it because there's a million websites online telling you that fiber makes irritable bowel syndrome a million times worse. And there's a million people online or more telling you that they once had irritable bowel syndrome, and when they took a high fiber diet, it made it a million times worse. So stay away from it, whatever you do. So I used to go to these doctors when I was about 19 until I was 24. And I went to lots and lots and lots of them. Now, I'm 64 now, so I'm going back 45 years. And they didn't help me at all. They had no interest in helping me. And they seemed disinterested and they seemed stupid. And they just went through an exact series of questions that ask you A, B, and C. And if you said C, they'd ask you another series of questions, A, B, or C. And if you said B, then they'd ask you another series of questions, A, B, and C. It could be done on a computer. And then they'd just end up giving you a prescription or else telling you to go for a test to the hospital. And I went for the test to the hospital so many times. The last time I went, they told me, we've lost your files, even though I'd sat in the waiting room for 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours, without anything to eat. And then they came in the evening. This was in the regional hospital in Galway, Ireland. They came to me in the evening, and when all the other patients were gone, and they said, we've lost your files. And that's all they said. So I hate them. I hate mainstream medicine, and I hate it with a vengeance. And I know how to cure irritable bowel syndrome, gout, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, and a whole lot more. And what you do is you switch to a carnivore diet and you only eat meat and eggs, meat, fish, and eggs. Don't eat too much bacon, or you can eat bacon if you want, but you're better off eating red meat most of the time. Eat red meat, fresh fish, eggs, and if you do that, you will cure irritable bowel syndrome and gout, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, epilepsy, and Parkinson's disease, and a whole lot more. And doctors aren't allowed to tell you this, because if they tell you this, they immediately lose their license and they lose their false authority. And as well as that, when they go to university, they're inculcated into a cult. It's inculcation. They use inculcation on doctors to make them believe what is not true. Because a lot of doctors say that in the final years of their studies, they're kept sleep deprived and they're kept overwhelmed with too much study. And those are inculcation techniques to keep the cult victim sleep deprived and overwhelmed with too much study is a method of inculcating, so they can no longer think clearly and they no longer question anything. They just let it straight through to their brains without questioning it. So doctors are being inculcated, and then when they become doctors, they get a lot of money, like more than the average income, and they they're afraid then to question anything, because if they question anything, they lose their license, and they might even be imprisoned. And the reason for all this is dark occultists. In my opinion, I can't prove it. Dark occultists, including like, I don't know what type of dark occultists, Luciferians possibly, control the medical industrial complex. They wish to keep us all sick. They wish to keep our vibrations low. We are much easier to control if we are sick and uninformed than if we are well informed and healthy. If we are well informed and healthy, we challenge their authorities. If we are sickly and chronically ill and uninformed, we're too busy trying to solve our own problems to challenge their false authority in the world. And that is one reason why they keep us sick, and they give us bad advice, and they give us bad advice through the medical professionals. And my local radio station, a pharmacist comes on once a week, and he keeps telling victims of irritable bowel syndrome to take extra fiber, and he's given them the polar opposite advice to what is good advice. And I cry inside when I hear it, because I know that sufferer from irritable bowel syndrome will get a whole lot worse. When they take the high fiber diet, they'll get a whole lot worse. And I just cry inside, because I know what it was like to suffer from irritable bowel syndrome. In the past, I used to cry a lot on my own because I couldn't solve it. I used to cry and cry and cry, and this was 45 years ago. I'm 64 now, and I've solved it. And it's a simple matter of switching to a carnivore diet. And look, I don't keep precisely to the carnivore diet, but I'm going to streamline it a bit more in the future. But I keep enough to it to keep myself healthy. So you can cure almost anything on the carnivore diet, especially irritable bowel syndrome, gout, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, epilepsy, and Parkinson's disease, especially anything related to the brain, because the brain loves ketones, which are fat globules. It doesn't like glucose. It doesn't like to be supplied with glucose as its fuel. And in Alzheimer's disease is type 3 diabetes, where the brain is no longer able to use glucose as its fuel. And those who've had very, very severe Alzheimer's disease and didn't even know their own names, where all foods that contain glucose or any type of sugar were removed from their diets. All foods, and not just carbohydrates, but also any animal products that contain sugar, like cheese, because cheese contains lactose, which is a type of sugar. And the only foods on the whole planet that don't contain any type of sugar at all are meat, fish, and eggs. So you switch to a diet of meat, fish, and eggs, and you drink water containing sea salt or Himalayan pink salt every day, because the salt in the water draws water into your alimentary canal and keeps everything moving along. So that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take salt water as you drink, and don't drink coffee because that's a plant. Even though I'm still drinking it myself, I haven't given it up, but I'm planning to give it up in the future. And so what you do is the brain then will not be getting glucose as its fuel, because you won't be eating any glucose in any form, not even cheese. And the only fuel the brain will be getting will be ketones, because ketones are fat molecules. The fat molecules. And the brain will swing into action, and it will work better than it ever worked before. And then your family member will be cured of the Alzheimer's, and they will be able to be extremely intelligent and even go back to work if they need to. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.